Hello and welcome to... Well, actually, it's not really a regular Smash Bros. Moveset video. I've been thinking about this video for a while now, and after deep diving into the lore and history of the game in question, as well as putting a lot of hours into the game, I think it's finally time I try and tackle it. In this video, I wanted to explore the concept of a Smash Bros. X Fortnite collaboration. Again, I'm talking about collaboration broadly here because, unlike my normal Smash videos, I went into this genuinely not knowing if a Fortnite character would work on the Smash roster. Usually when I start this process, it's because a character or game is really speaking to me. I see some kind of spark of potential for what could make a rep from that series stand out among the other Smash fighters. With Fortnite though, that straightforward vision never came. I kept trying exploring a variety of options because 1, I think it's a very fun game, especially with zero build mode, and 2, perhaps unpopularly, I think Fortnite is fairly deserving of a spot at this point, outliving that it's what the kids are playing factor that people might decry and similarly complained about with Minecraft and Steve. But the question is, should a Fortnite rep be added to Smash? Can a Fortnite fighter work in Smash at all? That's why I felt it was finally time to dig in, take a look at everything in Fortnite that might catch Sakurai's eye, and answer the question, should Fortnite join Smash? Also, I guess this is kind of a Fortnite YouTube video now, so let's get into the spirit of things. What's up everybody? Today we're talking about just what the heck is Fortnite. Well, if you've been living under a rocky reels for the past few years, let me hit the gritty and break it down for you. Okay, never mind, it's too much. After 6 or 7 years of development troubles, Fortnite, now called Fortnite Save the World, was released into early access in July of 2017. Fortnite Save the World is a fairly straightforward zombie survival shooter with resource gathering and crafting elements, and is, as far as I can tell, well liked enough even now. I've never played it myself, but it seems like it'd be a pretty fine time with friends. However, when you say Fortnite, that's not even the second thing people are likely to think of. Because just 2 months after its release, everything about Fortnite would change forever. Okay, last one. He can't hurt you anymore. In September of 2017, inspired by the breakout success of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, Fortnite Battle Royale was released to the world. 100 players drop onto an island, alone or with friends, and battle to survive as an ever-encroaching storm closes in, making the livable areas of the map smaller and smaller. You're tasked with scavenging the world or killing other players to find weapons, ammo, and other items, as well as breaking down terrain to gather resources. See, initially, the main distinguishing factor about Fortnite as a Battle Royale was its building mechanics, which were completely ripped straight from the original Save the World systems. Using wood, stone, or metal, you could not only fight, but build walls for defense or build stairs and floors for quicker traversal of the map. Since its creation, Fortnite Battle Royale, which I will just call Fortnite from now on, has seen many changes and huge events ranging from gigantic media crossovers to in-game concerts to more crossovers to huge interactable lore events to even more crossovers. They also added creative, enabling tons of unique player-created content, and even eventually made the game fun again by adding the aforementioned Zero build, which makes Fortnite playable again for normies like me who took a couple years away from the game. It's also responsible for popularizing the death of video games, I mean the Battle Pass, supporting its free-to-play model with in-game purchases via the Battle Pass and the shop. Regardless of my own thoughts on the Battle Pass framework, for better or worse, Fortnite quickly became one of the biggest games in history. It has millions upon millions of players, some of the most viewed streams of all time, and has made billions of dollars worldwide. In short, it's become a cultural phenomenon the same way Minecraft did not too long ago. This impact has only been greatened over time thanks to Fortnite's numerous media crossovers, from other games to movies and shows to real-life athletes, streamers, and musicians. It's had its fair share of troubles, of course, whether that be concerns about the youth of the world or legal action, but basically nothing has been able to stop Fortnite's role, and I don't see anything doing that anytime soon. And just to establish my own feelings towards the game, while I may despise its modern monetization mechanisms, I do genuinely think the game is a blast to play. It's grown and changed in really good ways, and it's one of the few games I can play to relax where I don't get annoyed by losing, unlike something like Smash. But speaking of Smash, let's get back to the topic at hand. First, let's start with this, despite me usually saving this topic for last. What are Fortnite's chances of being represented in Smash? If we ignore moveset viability for the moment and just look at the game's impact and reputation, along with Nintendo's general willingness to promote and support the game,
I can't wait to drop off the battle bus.
Despite not actively participating thus far, missing some perfect opportunities, I think there's a decently high likelihood we'll see something Fortnite in the next Smash. While there may not be direct ties between Epic and Smash right now, Fortnite has shown its willingness to work with other companies in the name of the almighty crossover time and time again. And on Nintendo's side, really, they'd be fools to not consider this opportunity. The amount of buzz this would generate would be unquantifiable. And like I said before, I really think Fortnite has earned its chance at a spot on the roster. They could have just kept adding skins and let the money flow, but they've continued to improve and add to the game in fun ways that make the most out of this toxic live service model. And once again, just because something is popular, especially amongst kids, does not mean it shouldn't be in Smash. It was a dumb argument against Steve, and it's still a dumb argument against a potential Fortnite rep. Continuing on with just focusing on Fortnite and Smash as a whole, let's start talking about everything that Fortnite could offer. I'm gonna keep kinda going in reverse of what I normally do, looking at things like a stage, music, and other extra elements. And despite its emphasis on pop culture crossover, there's a lot of things uniquely Fortnite that could be pulled from. I didn't really talk about the lore of Fortnite in my overview because frankly, I watched multiple lore videos and read the wikis and still don't really have a grasp on all of it. Suffice it to say, there's plenty of options that Sakurai and the team could consider without having to cough up the big bucks and sacrifice the game's core identity because of Batman or Spider-Man. To start, I'm going to talk about these things as if they were the only representation being added to Smash without being attached to a playable rep, and I'll address what I would change with a playable rep when we get there. To start extremely simply, we could see Fortnite represented through new items in Smash. While there are obviously plenty of weapons you could choose from or special one-off items, I think a more utilitarian option would be good. You could have a placeable launch pad, a shield potion that grants you a temporary overshield that takes like 20% damage for you, or a rift to go, creating a tear in reality that you can jump through to be dropped back out at the top of the stage. We could also see a llama, essentially acting as a crate that will run away from you before disappearing if not destroyed. Sticking with items, I suppose we could see Fortnite represented as an assist trophy, maybe summoning the storm to close in on the battlefield and render a portion of the stage damaging to be in, or you could have the battle bus fly by overhead, dropping off several weak loopers that will generally cause havoc on stage. Though I don't really love this option, the characters don't have quite enough unique abilities and personality to make this more worthwhile than any of the other items or some other means of representation. Before we get too character focused, let's cover what I feel is the most likely Fortnite representation in Smash with or without a playable rep: a stage. I would argue that since the players have a myriad of avatars and weapons are constantly changing, the overall vibe of the island and the storm are some of the most recognizable elements of the game. Of course, being a huge 3D environment that has gone through tons of iterations, it's not exactly a simple one-to-one conversion. There are a few approaches we could take here and choices to make. The first being deciding what this stage should actually be called. So far, we've seen the islands of Athena, Apollo, and Artemis in the game, with some shared named locations throughout, a la Tilted Towers. While picking one specific island could be a good choice in order to narrow down the possible locations of the map to fight on, I think choosing something more generic and able to combine aspects of all of the maps, along with feeling relevant even as Fortnite continues to change, is a smarter option. In which case, the Fortnite stage would be called Reality Zero. Now for how it actually works. The two main elements that need to be in a Fortnite stage are areas where you can find loot and the storm. The loot aspect is easy enough, having glowing chests around or the occasional llama to deposit helpful items. The mechanics of the storm are where things get a little tricky, and where we really need to question how this stage would be designed. One option here would be the huge stage approach, like Palutena's Temple or Great Cave. Just have the biggest map you could fathom with unique sections and biomes, and the storm slowly shrinking over time or based on remaining stocks to make the stage smaller and smaller, pushing in the blast zones. I just don't think that's the move though. For a Fortnite stage to feel right in Smash, it should feel like an extension of Fortnite, both being massive crossovers, just with the perspective of gameplay shifted. And of course, a major component of the experience of playing on the map is dropping into one of the varied locations. Therefore, I think Reality Zero would start everyone out atop the battle bus, flying over the island, and maybe having a couple floating platforms come in and out depending on how long you stay on the bus. Think of it like the beginning of Halberd, flying around before landing on the ship. From there, the bus will leave you behind, having you fall into one of a few sections of the map. These will all be maybe a little smaller than temples, so that there's room to explore but also space to narrow in with the storm, which would work exactly as I just described, closing in based on time or stocks. As for unique sections of the map you could get dropped off at, there's plenty of options both in the way of more generic biomes and named points of interest from the game. Here are the 7 I, pun intended, landed on. The Joneses, a standard area with trees and cabins to represent the basic forest biome. Rocky Reels, having a couple buildings and the main platform being atop the giant screen flickering with some of Fortnite's cinematics, made to represent the desert biome. Haunted Hills with various churches and graveyards with some tough terrain, kind of representing Save the World. Greasy Grove in its Reality Falls iteration to both represent the classic area and this unique visual design with bouncy mushrooms. Sanctuary set in the tropical biome with some fun bridges and waterways. Shifty Shafts, a mix of towering snowy mountains and underground tunnels to represent the snow biome. And last but not least, Tilted Towers, hosting building interiors and rooftops to smash on. If you didn't want the map to just go from bus to stage and to actually loop, you could have the 0-point reset the map. The Battlefield and Omega versions would take place on a metallic platform suspended by air balloons, with a random biome in the background. And we can't forget about the music, which Fortnite has in spades. Here are my track selections, which I worked down from a list of about 70 songs, and I'll play some of my favorites. Now let's dip back into character talk with things like Mii costumes and spirits. Once again, we don't know if something like spirits will return, but they're a fun thing to make, so they're staying in these videos for now. Let's start with Mii costumes though, since that will play into the spirits. Keeping in mind that this could be representation without a playable rep, the most obvious choice would be a generic recruit outfit, based on either their Season 1 or Season 3 looks or some amalgamation. This could either work for the gunner with a sidearm pistol or the sword fighter with a standard pickaxe, or harvesting tool, I guess. This would allow you to make Miis representing any of the default recruits you wanted. If you wanted to cover that up though, you could also don a llama mask. Beyond the basic playable character, while there are tons and tons of characters to be considered, I think the only other elements we really need to focus on are the Imagined Order and the Seven, and everything else can get a spirit. A generic Imagined Order gunner uniform pulling from the IO patrol armor and helmet is probably best, as that way you could make a Sloan Mii if you wanted. As for the Seven, they do all have unique enough designs that could be shown off, but totally separate costumes might be too much. I think a really cool way to handle it would be to have different styles of the same Seven gunner costume, like an extension of the Bomberman concept. You could have one suit and helmet for each of the Seven, and have the eighth be a mecha straight suit and helmet. But now we can really dig deep with the spirits. I said that a stage was the most likely form of representation Fortnite could get, but obviously something like this would be easier, if not less meaningful, and is more likely in that way. Much like everything else so far, I want there to be a healthy balance of common elements of the game, the lore, past big events, and some care for Save the World. With that in mind, here are my spirit choices. So that's just about every other way Fortnite could be represented in Smash without a playable rep. But that begs the question, who would be chosen for the honor if a Fortnite rep made it to the roster? While there are plenty of named characters in the game and its lore, I find there to be two main choices here, a looper/recruit or Jones/Jonesy. Let's start with the looper. While this would technically use the default recruit skins that you're randomly assigned if you don't have a set one, I think the name Looper better encompasses the concept of the game. I could maybe see issues with Looper also applying to the third-party crossovers and Recruit being more accurate, but I don't think that's a huge deal. As this is technically who every Fortnite player is playing as, and therefore fully encompasses everything possible in a moveset, a Looper would be a natural choice for playable rep. However, for one major flaw that I'll get into later, I don't think they're all that exciting of a pick. I think a character getting added to Smash needs more character, more personality. Because of this, I think that a better pick for playable rep is Agent John Jones, aka Jones, aka Jonesy. This is more or less who everyone would expect to be added from Fortnite, as Jonesy Fortnite is the face of the game the same way Steve Minecraft is. And to his credit, he does have a lot of things pushing him over the top. Unlike the loopers, Jones is an actual character with a backstory. He was an IO agent who's gone through the loop countless times, hence all of his snapshot copies running around, and later defected to seek the Seven's aid in saving reality, essentially being the main protagonist of Fortnite. He's also got some real characterization in things like the cinematics, having an established personality and voice that is a seasoned video game voice actor, a much more accessible option over, The Rock. Plus, as an active participant in the story, there's no reason he couldn't do everything the average looper could do, meaning you could give the essential Fortnite moveset to an actual character. And to top it all off, a huge part of his character is hopping through dimensions into different IPs, a perfect fit for Smash. So from here on out, when I'm discussing the viability of a Fortnite moveset, it will be specifically as a Jones moveset. And before we move on, there are two things that we need to change about the additional content. The first is, obviously, to cut the Jones Spirit Battle. The second is to include Jones's classic mode route. My concept for this route is called the Omniverse's Greatest Heroes, and focuses on Jones traveling to the various worlds found in Smash to recruit them for the final battle. With only 7 spots, it's hard to narrow down who exactly would be best for Jones to recruit, but I tried to focus on people who have actively saved the world or universe along with being big icons. We start out with Mario and Luigi on Princess Peach's castle, then Link on Great Plateau, Samus on Brinstar, Kirby on Green Greens, Fox on Corneria, and Marth on Coliseum. After the bonus stage, you and your assembled team of heroes will face off against the hands. It's not the hardest classic mode route, but I think it encapsulates what makes Jones special. Now finally onto the moveset. It's rough concepts. Like I said from the start, I've struggled to really visualize Jones working properly in Smash. A big contributing factor to that is how much Fortnite changes and evolves, leaving dozens and dozens of potential tools on the table to where it's kind of overwhelming to think about. If we're going to get anywhere, we have to really put things under a microscope. Before I lay out any actual moveset, we need to figure out what makes Fortnite Fortnite, and how that could be converted into a fighting style viable in Smash. So if we really break Fortnite down, what makes Fortnite fun? What's that Sakurai essence, the push and pull? For starters, unlike other shooters, Fortnite isn't 100% speed and intensity. Combat in Fortnite isn't about completely overpowering the enemy. If anything, it's more about the build up to that. A huge chunk of any run in Fortnite will be spent exploring the map to gather weapons, ammo, and other resources. The idea is to be as prepared as possible for a fight, to constantly find better and better gear. That's not to say that it's incredibly slow or campy or only about the high-powered loot, though. Sure, you can play it like that, but if you're confident in your skills, you can drop down in the middle of a crowd, find the nearest weapon, and fight your way out. While Fortnite is about preparedness, it's more appropriate to say it's about timing, gauging the time it takes to evade the storm, to move from one point to another, and knowing when is the best time to attack with the upper hand. But like I said, sometimes you don't need or have that perfect moment. Sometimes you're in the middle of the fight, or you're suddenly being sniped from across the map. In those cases, it's about knowing your capabilities and your limits. It's a careful interplay of knowing what your weapons are capable of and knowing what you are capable of. Now, some of this will always come down to luck of the draw. Maybe you only have an SMG and a shotgun while you're being sniped. Or maybe you have guns that burn clips super quickly and you prioritized health and shields, meaning you can't hold your own if you're getting rushed down. So not only do you need to manage your time and resources, not only do you have to carefully weigh the odds of each fight, but you also need to be adaptive. Sometimes you have to give up a really nice weapon or item because it's just not helpful anymore. That adaptability also plays right into the building, an entire other huge element of the game. With building on, you're less at the mercy of the structures and nature of the island. If you build up enough inventory, you can traverse basically anywhere you want, and if you're under attack, you can build an entire fortress that complements whatever weapons you have. What's nice is that the means of doing so is very straightforward outside of more specialized pieces you can find. You can use floors to make more stable ground, traps, or cross sections of open air, use walls to defend yourself, creating safety where none exists, use stairs for a slow but controlled descent or escape, and use pyramids for a little bit of everything, allowing you some cover while also useful for a variety of building and movement. So when we talk about Fortnite's essence being converted into Smash, those are the things we need to keep in mind. To summarize, you carefully manage the timing of your movement and attacks, you loot to find weapons, tools, and resources, and while you can naturally find better gear through exploring or modifying what you have, you'll find more quicker by taking out enemies, meaning combat is encouraged. You have to stay adaptive, in general doing the best you can with the inherent luck of the draw of any encounter or molding the world to your liking, and finally, you weigh your odds and decide when to fight and when to flee. Sometimes you completely get the jump on someone and take them out with ease. Other times you'll be quickly cornered and need to decide if your best bet is to stand your ground or find a way out. Sure, there's other specifics we could mention, like keeping track of ammo and being aware of things around you like vehicles or environmental hazards, but those other broader strokes are what we really need to focus on. With those elements in mind, how do we convert that into a fighting game? I started by looking into some of the most common fighting game tropes and tried matching up the pieces, seeing what felt best for this kind of fighter. You have your rushdowns and your grapplers and your mimics, but we have to consider how the most basic components fit in. With this being a shooter, your gut reaction may be to look at things like a zoner or focusing on stage control. And while it is true that a lot of combat in Fortnite takes place at the highest range you can work with, keeping enemies away to give yourself time to react, that's not always the case. SMGs and shotguns provide much closer combat alternatives, and things like your harvesting tool are incredibly close range, even if it's not a primary weapon. Plus, some fighters that are inherently gunner characters like Samus have a ton of melee moves. While I want to keep guns core to the moveset and won't be taking that approach, it's important to understand that we could veer into a different direction, not so reliant on source material. With so many unique things to consider though, I don't want that to be the case here. I could also see arguments for something like a hit and run playstyle or being mix-up heavy, but I don't think that's it either. Once you're in a fight in Fortnite, it rarely aids you to back off. And while you can get tricky in a Fortnite shootout with movement and gadgets, for the most part, you're really just trying to get to a place of advantage, going back more so to that stage controlling zoner angle. So then maybe he's more of an all-arounder, able to cover long and short range. Well, not really that either. I think there's a difference between being adaptive and able to play evenly across the board versus being built specifically to be a jack of all trades. And then there's the ability to switch in and out of build mode and upgrading your gear, which each fit into their own archetypes. Do you see what makes this moveset so difficult to conceptualize? Because there's so much Jones can do, it's hard to nail down what he should do. Alright, let's really narrow our scope and make a short list of everything a Jones moveset would need. Ranged weapons are your primary means of fighting, with the harvesting tool and movement options being viable choices for a couple attacks. Assault rifles and SMGs are good neutral weapons for most encounters, while shotguns and snipers help to define your dominance at certain ranges. Things like utility items and explosives shake things up, and consumables lend a helping hand. You should be rewarded for doing well in combat by upgrading your inventory, and maybe even managing your inventory to completely adapt. This makes you a mid-range zoner that focuses on stage control, but depending on your loadout, being able to battle better at short range or long range, to last longer, or to move around easier. However, on top of all of this, ideally there would be a building element to the character that would allow them to alter the stage similar to Steve. Even with this narrowed scope, there's so many ways this could be applied. The safest, easiest to apply to Smash, and least interesting would be something like the Samus approach, or the way that I've made movesets for someone like Gordon Freeman. Add some new melee attacks, few weapons have continuous fire and are instead attacks with set start and end times, and the specials are the main place we really see any of that Fortnite flair, whether that be with building or various items. But I want to push things further than that. A middle ground approach would be to have more focus on continuous shooting and utilize one or two of the core gimmicks of Fortnite. For example, you could fully switch between build mode and combat mode, changing from harvesting tool melee, using traps, and building on the stage to a complete weapons and range focus. or you can focus on the looting and upgrade mechanic, allowing you to change or improve parts of your kit over time. And while this too could probably work, again, I don't like leaving one of these massive parts of Fortnite's identity behind. I think the only way I'd want to approach this is to go ballers to the wall and make it one of the most unique movesets in Smash, with elements inspired by some wilder platform fighting concepts seen in something like Multiverses or Rivals. With all of that in mind, on a broad conceptual basis, here's how I think it would have to work. Your most basic moves include a variety of weapon fire, weak on knockback but central to dealing damage. You'll have some guaranteed kill power in your smash attacks, bringing in other elements of the game outside of standard guns. Your specials would be your strongest means of getting kills, but you'd have to work to make sure they work best against certain play styles. Okay, I think I finally got something. Let's stop with the broad strokes and get into this properly. Hello and welcome. We did that already, never mind. While we've already established that Jones is our fighter of choice to represent Fortnite, as per my usual, I'd like to touch on his stats and aesthetic elements first to help you visualize what he'd be like in Smash. To start with stats, Jones is fairly middle of the road despite the complexity of his moveset. He shares the weight of Mario, the walk and dash of Duck Hunt, the lowest jump of Hero, and the fairly fast falling of Mithra. Together, this creates a character that isn't as durable as you'd expect, but with decent enough movement that puts the onus on the player to space properly and get out of sticky situations. Moving on to his visual touches, we start by looking at his palette swaps. As an accomplished looper, there's dozens of Jonesy variants that could be pulled from. However, I want to keep things a little more tame, something that stays true to the character while also embodying Fortnite's core aesthetic. I decided to give Jones 4 unique skins, with 2 of them having 2 additional color swaps each and 2 being entirely unique. His default look would be that of Jonesy the First in the basic recruit outfit, with color swaps reflecting the main biomes of the island, a desert alt with tans, browns, and reds, and a snow alt with white and black. His second main alt would be his actual Agent Jones suit and tie appearance, with a purple alt to represent the Storm and Last Reality, and a blue alt to represent the Seven. His 2 unique outfits would be his Jump 31 martial arts uniform and his Jump 42 Zero Crisis armor. Jones' stage entrance would have him fly in on a glider as the battle bus passes by in the distance, sounding its horn. He could also have a special KO animation reminiscent of the death animation in-game, having you dissipate into blue data. You could at least have that in stamina matches with the little drone showing up. While in a battle, he would stand holding whichever weapon or item he used last, according to the animations in Fortnite itself. His idle animation would have him stretch, and his taunts would include peering through a rift portal that displays one of a few scenes with Fortnite characters inside, having him wave at them, the default dance, and taking a brief phone call. For the victory theme, I'm a little torn between a remix of the OG theme and a version of the Save the World victory theme, also used in Winner's Circle. Which do you prefer? And for his victory screens, one has him fall through a rift and hit the ground off screen, standing up and dusting himself off. One is based off the Victory Royale crown emote, and one has him sitting outside of a tent peacefully. For that last one, I think it would be nice to include Peely somehow, whether he's sitting there with him and giving him a fist bump, or in his bunker drink form. Alright, now into the actual moveset. To start, Jones will have 2 core mechanics. The first is called Upgrade. As you deal damage and take stocks, you'll slowly fill and change the color of a square near your character portrait, changing from blue to purple to orange. This represents 3 tiers of upgrades for your weapons. Blue is rare, purple is epic, and orange is legendary. By pressing Shield B, entering a glowing animation that looks like an upgrade bench, and then using an attack that is equipped with some kind of weapon or gear, you'll enhance that piece of gear, making it stronger. This is partially based on the upgrade benches found in the game, partially based on just finding better and better weapons, but mostly it's based on the evolving Evochrome weapons in the latest season as of this video. It's a great mechanic, and it makes for a nice excuse to implement a similar mechanic in this moveset. His other mechanic is called Loot, built around random drops after dealing damage or big hits, but that is built into your specials, so we'll get back to that. To get into your attacks now, a lot of your normals will be fundamentally the same. Jab, F-tilt, up-tilt, nair, fair, and up-air all fire your primary weapon. With F-tilt and up-air, you would be able to tilt the attack to change your aim within a thin cone. Your base weapon will be the sidearm pistol, which can then be upgraded to the Stinger SMG, the Hammer Assault Rifle, and the Ranger Assault Rifle. This progression generally increases your range and power of each shot. Throughout all of these, only the first and last shots deal any significant knockback, the rest functioning like Fox's blaster. This is to make sure that you have some kill power in these core moves while also ensuring enemies can still actually approach you. Another safeguard of this is set clip sizes, meaning you'll do a little reload animation after firing a certain amount. You won't have to actually worry about ammo, but it does keep you from non-stop using these moves. To round out the normals, down tilt is a sliding kick like Cloud and others, dash attack is a shoulder charge, and back air and down air both use your harvesting tool. Back air is a spinning slash, and down air is a huge swing downwards from the front, covering a lot of space in front of you as well as spiking below you. These moves help to give your normals some consistent kill power and stronger escape options, but cannot be upgraded. I suppose you could upgrade the harvesting tool into the Infinity Blade with a legendary upgrade, but it might be better to stick with the more common tools. Your grab would utilize the Harpoon Gun, acting as a fast tether grab and recovery option. You will then pummel with some basic punches. Forward and back throw would use your primary weapon to blast the enemy with a couple shots, dealing significantly more knockback than usual, and up and down would use the harvesting tool for a powerful swing. The harvesting tool also remains consistent throughout all of your smash attacks, again providing consistent ways to deal killing blows outside of your ever-changing arsenal. F smash is a 2-hit swing based on the normal tool swings, similar to Link's. Up smash is a 3-hit spinning swing reminiscent of Link's up B, just with less height, and down smash is a lunging slam to the ground with a lot of horizontal knockback. The latter two are based on attacks with the aforementioned Infinity Blade. Now for the specials, and to return to that loot mechanic. You see, unlike basically any other character, most of your specials aren't set in stone. You'll always come in with the same ones, but with the loot mechanic, you'll be able to actively switch out weapons and equipment as the game progresses, completely changing your abilities. The way this works in gameplay is, as you deal enough consecutive damage or huge damage dealing blows, enemies will drop items onto the stage. By walking over to it and hitting B, you'll then be able to input B, side B, or up B to replace your current special with whatever has randomly spawned. As your defaults, neutral B would be the auto shotgun, a short range but deadly blast with a bit of end lag. This could be upgraded to the drum shotgun, faster firing but with less kill potential, the striker pump shotgun with more damage but more end lag, and the ranger shotgun, even stronger and with more range but even more end lag. Side B would be grenade, a fairly standard explosive with the added bonus that it cannot be picked up. This only has 2 levels of upgrades, changing into the grenade launcher for longer range and the rocket launcher for range and power while being a bit slower. And up B is a crash pad, working similar to spring recoveries. You'll place a crash pad below you, jumping up high in the air and going into freefall. This can be upgraded once into the launch pad, sending you significantly higher and allowing you to glide afterwards. And although it's not part of the loot mechanic, let me first open another can of worms with down B, build. With this, I tried to find a middle ground between full on changing your moves by switching to build mode and just having you build stairs with up B or something. By tapping down B, you'll enter build mode, where you'll be able to place walls, floors, stairs, pyramids, and a single type of trap. You'll place these items by tapping B, placing them below you in the air, and switch what you'll be placing by tapping A. I'm not sure what the best balancing choice for this is without an in-depth resource system like Steve, but I think you would either have a very limited amount of time or a very small general inventory meter that depletes each time you place something. Suffice it to say, you're not going to be building a ton all at once, and the structures would decay just like Steve's blocks. This move can still be upgraded though. Starting with wood, you can upgrade it to stone and metal. As for your traps, wood comes with campfire, which heals you when in range and burns enemies, stone with chiller, freezing an enemy, and metal with damage trap, attacking with deadly spikes. Returning to the other 3 specials though, once an enemy drops loot, you're able to place it wherever you like, or let it despawn. Whatever item you trade it with will despawn after a very short time as well, though you may be able to use some one-use items quick enough that you can get it back. If you do land a killing blow off stage, the loot will fall into the abyss. And if you do get a one-use item and don't immediately replace it once it's used, you just won't have that special. At its best, you'll constantly be throwing new things at your enemy. At its worst, you mismanage and leave yourself without any tools. Also, these items are not upgradable, so you have to decide if you'd rather upgrade your base kit or use these more limited resources. Anyway, here are all the items you might come across. Remote explosives, giving you 3 and working like C4. Firefly jar, a single projectile leaving flames on stage and burning enemies stuck in it. Hunter bolt action sniper, an extremely long range weapon. This works by showing you a reticle and allowing you to aim for a second before firing, letting you lead your shot if needed. Boogie bomb, forcing enemies to taunt. Shockwave grenade, a damageless explosion sending you and enemies flying, throwing it closer or farther depending on how long you hold the move. Grapple glove, either latching you towards an enemy or swinging you from ledge or the top of the screen. Medkit, healing 30% after a short animation. Shield potion, giving you an overshield that reduces damage and knockback for up to 20%. Rift to go, shaking a globe that teleports you to the top of the stage and glides you down, and Porta Fort, throwing a projectile that plops down a structure onto the stage. Lastly, for Jones's final smash, we need something other than the storm that encapsulates Fortnite, since the storm appears as a stage hazard. A bunch of loopers showing up could be fun, but that doesn't feel climactic enough. I decided to pull from a major moment in Fortnite's history with a move called 0 Point Black Hole. A rift will open towards the top middle of the stage, spawning in the 0 point to burst out with deadly energy. After a brief time, a meteor will come crashing down onto the 0 point, causing it to turn in on itself and suck everything and everyone into a black hole as the screen goes black, then bursting out with one final explosion to set the stage back to normal. All in all, Jones is a character that is simple at his core but requires a lot of forethought and strategy to play well. You gotta know how to use your basic moves and when to take a chance on picking up some of the random drops. I felt that this kind of layout was the best way to represent the entire identity of Fortnite without sacrificing any major components. So now that a Jones moveset is finally set in stone, we need to answer some of the questions presented earlier in the video. Does the moveset work, and what are his chances of getting into Smash with a moveset in mind? Earlier on, I spoke about how making a moveset for a Fortnite rep was a tall order, with seemingly so much on the table. However, I also alluded to some issues of personality of the characters in the game. Do I think that this moveset could justify a Fortnite rep like Jones in Smash? Honestly, I don't know. I still kinda don't think so. Don't get me wrong, Sakurai has made weirder movesets work with less to work with, and I'm sure that if we did see Jones on the roster, Sakurai would think of some totally different way to implement him that would completely shift the status quo. But the thing that I just keep getting hung up on is I don't see the way these characters could dance. Not like emotes or the aforementioned Gritty. I'm talking about the way Sakurai has discussed roster inclusions multiple times in the past and the things he looks for. He describes needing to see characters dancing, displaying a strong personality, uniqueness to the roster, and envisioning a concrete embodiment of the character. And I really don't see that happening with Fortnite, mostly due to this major reason. Fortnite's design and animation does an honestly shockingly impressive job at being versatile, being able to make original characters, crossover IPs, and even real people all feel like they work together in the game. However, because it needs to stay so wide-spanning, it leaves the characters feeling kind of empty, as only avatars for players to control. It's not about playing as the characters, it's about interacting with the game from a very mechanical standpoint and choosing your favorite skin. And even when there are established characters in the game with personalities, they come across as blank-faced computers who walk and act exactly the same, stuck within the confines of their code instead of expressing any kind of individuality. If it wasn't for the lore and the cinematics, I wouldn't think Fortnite was possible or likely at all. At most, I would think maybe we'll get an assist trophy or Mii costumes, or maybe a Fortnite stage. Basically anything that doesn't need to embody any real personality and can more so highlight the mechanics and style of the game. But as I discussed, I did ultimately land on Jones as the conduit of this moveset. He's more or less the face of the game, and at the very least he is some kind of character that we've seen act a bit more openly and uniquely in the world, whether that be in cinematics or in-game events. However, I'm still not sure it's enough. When I say he has character, I'm saying that pretty generously. Even with his dialogue and backstory, he's kind of a default everyman. He's skilled, a fighter with qualities of a rebel and a leader, with a bit of silliness and sass that makes light of the reality-ending circumstances surrounding him. I'm not saying you have to be some deep, complicated character to be in Smash. Lord knows Mario's character development isn't winning any awards. But while Mario's heroic traits feel like tenets of his character, Jones feels more like a calculation for the kind of character people want to see and interact with. With the vague glimpses at the lore through cinematics and events, they designed him to be a character that could be easily liked and related to. Hell, there's been cinematics where I've genuinely not known if I was looking at Jones or one of his snapshots, because they all carry that same blank spend your money on this skin stare. You could maybe try to make a moveset that embodied specifically Jones, but then I think you'd exclude a lot of core elements about Fortnite and kind of defeat the purpose. And even then, do the core mechanics of Fortnite really lend themselves to an interesting new fighter? Because look, Steve is an avatar too. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Steve and Jones are all that different when it comes to feeling like an empty shell. But what puts Steve over is the identity of Minecraft itself, how beautifully distinct the look and tools of that game are. And while Fortnite may have good visuals, are you really doing anything all that different than other games? Shooting, building, driving, using standard healing items. Even some of the moves I included are reskins of abilities from licensed characters. So if you're going to focus on a shooter character, are you really that inclined to pick Jones over some other titans of the industry like Doomslayer or Master Chief? Outside of more ignorant distaste for the character, I find that to be a really compelling case against Jones's inclusion on the roster. And for all those reasons, I don't think Jones is all that likely in the next Smash. I have a hard time seeing a world where Sakurai A, finds him to be more interesting than another shooter character, and B, finds a way to make him feel like a lively character while also incorporating the various central elements of Fortnite's gameplay. I'd be more than happy to be wrong on this. I think Jones could end up being a really fun character, and Fortnite has more than earned its acclaim. But if I had to put money on it, I'd say we get a Recruit Me outfit and maybe a Reality Zero stage. But what do you think? Do you think Jones or Fortnite should be in Smash at all? Do you think I was onto something with this moveset? Let me know what you think. This video took a bit longer than I'd hoped to get out, but I was pretty burnt out from working on my first full-length album, 3113, which is available now and you should totally check it out if you like things like rock, pop, punk, indie, or maybe even a touch of hyperpop or lo-fi. As I've said before, I'm winding down on my Smash movesets significantly and want to focus on more broader creative pursuits like my music and things like my Prime 4 video. I think sometime next year I might wrap up this era of Smash movesets and perfectly square off this fighter roster here. I do have more videos planned for this year though. If all goes according to plan, I'll have a nice little video reflecting on my gaming experiences and a general update going into 2023. Subscribe to stay tuned for all that stuff, leave a like and a comment, and as always, thanks for watching.